Hello, and welcome to the Channel of Stories. Dear listeners, before we start the story, please subscribe to the channel and give this video a like and share in the comments where you are from. Thank you. Here we go.
From the moment I met Noah, I knew he was the kind of person who could ruin a perfectly good day just by existing in it. We met at a rooftop party in Brooklyn, late summer, the kind of sticky night where everyone was sipping overpriced cocktails and pretending the skyline made them feel something. He was mid-rant about bagels, yes, bagels, declaring with religious fervor that Montreal bagels were superior to New York's. I rolled my eyes so hard I actually got a cramp. "You talk a lot for someone who's wrong most of the time," I muttered, not even bothering to mask my irritation. He turned, met my gaze with a smirk that made my blood pressure spike. "You roll your eyes so much, I'm surprised they haven't gotten stuck." From that moment on, we were enemies in the most petty, exhausting, weirdly exhilarating way. Our mutual friends picked up on the dynamic instantly. Some found it hilarious. Others avoided putting us in the same room. But somehow, we always ended up in each other's orbit. There was the Friendsgiving dinner where we got into a heated argument over who had the better playlist. He said his, I said mine, we were both right and insufferable. The karaoke night where he dared me to sing Celine Dion, and I did, off-key and drunk, while he filmed it and nearly choked laughing. Once, we ended up at the same art gallery opening and got into a very loud, very public debate about the meaning of abstract expressionism. We were asked to leave. We left arguing about which of us was more embarrassing. It wasn't flirting. Or at least, that's what I told myself every time my pulse quickened when I saw his name in a group chat. Every time I caught myself scanning a room for his dumb, smug face. He had this ability to get under my skin like a splinter. The walls were paper thin. I could hear everything, his snoring, absurdly loud, his morning routine, he sings in the shower, and even the click of his phone charger when he plugged it in. It was like living next to a very irritating metronome. And because the universe loves irony, our rooms shared a tiny balcony. One chair. One table. Which led to some awkward, silently aggressive breakfast encounters. And the worst part? He enjoyed it. But I gave as good as I got. I knew exactly how to needle him. Like how he hated when people misquoted movies, I did it on purpose just to watch his eye twitch. Or how I'd always call him Noah in that drawn-out, mocking tone that made him scowl. Our entire friendship, if you could call it that, was built on mutual antagonism. We were two people who knew exactly how to push each other's buttons. We just didn't know how to stop. And then came the wedding. When my best friend called to tell me she was getting married in Tuscany, I was thrilled. A week in Italy? Pasta, wine, dresses? Yes, please. Until she said the groom was Noah's cousin. I nearly dropped my phone into my soup. "You invited him?" I asked, incredulous. "Well, yeah. He's family. But I'm family too. Found family." She laughed. "Come on, you two don't hate each other that much." We did. I arrived at the villa tired, jet-lagged, and already bracing for drama. I was assigned to room 3. Noah, I discovered within hours, had room 4. So yeah. Off to a great start. The villa looked like it belonged in a movie, all sprawling vineyards, lemon trees, and ancient stone arches that glowed golden in the afternoon light. The kind of place where every photo looked edited. It should have been paradise. Instead, it was the setting for my slow unraveling. The bridesmaids were given dresses in a hue the bride called Tuscan rose. I called it florals that hate me. It had cap sleeves and a waist ribbon that made me feel like a fancy wrapped breadstick. Noah showed up late to the first dinner, of course. He strolled in wearing a linen shirt unbuttoned just enough to look accidental, and greeted everyone like he'd been personally invited by the gods of charm. His hair was messier than usual. His smile too easy. My annoyance immediate. We locked eyes across the long wooden table. He raised a brow. I glared. The groom's teenage brother, Leo, a little chaos demon in a too-big suit, immediately sniffed out the tension. "God, just kiss already," he whispered as he passed me the bread. I choked on my wine. The second night, Leo cornered us in the hallway. "Pretend to be a couple. Just for dinner," he begged. "Grandma's convinced you two are secretly together. It's like her favorite soap opera. She's even betting money on it." "No," I said. "Yes," Noah said at the same time. We both turned to each other. He smirked. "What? Scared you'll fall for me? Scared you'll ruin it by talking." Somehow, we agreed. Blame it on Leo's puppy dog eyes. Blame it on the wine. Blame it on the fact that deep down, I was curious. Maybe too curious. That dinner was confusing. We sat closer than usual. He made a show of pouring my wine, brushing my hand by accident, except it didn't feel like an accident. Our jokes had an undercurrent. Our banter, suddenly flirtatious. He whispered something in Italian that I didn't understand but felt in my spine. Afterward, my best friend pulled me aside. "Okay, what's going on with you two?" That wasn't hatred. That was tension I could butter bread with. I shrugged. Acting. Leo's idea. But I couldn't sleep that night. The next day, we were paired for wine tasting. Noah made up fake tasting notes for each glass. "This one tastes like betrayal with hints of regret." I laughed so hard I almost dropped my glass. We wandered the vineyard. Took selfies. At some point, he pulled me into a row of vines to hide from a drunken groomsman reciting poetry. We were breathless. Faces close. And I swear, if someone had said, "Now kiss," I wouldn't have said no. But we didn't. Not yet. That night, the bride caught the bouquet during a practice toss and screamed like she'd just seen the ghost of a dress fitting gone wrong. Everyone laughed. I turned to find Noah watching me instead of the scene. We were supposed to be pretending. But something was starting to feel real. And it scared the hell out of me. By the fourth night in Tuscany, pretending to be a couple felt more like muscle memory than a favor. We knew the beats, hand on my back when we entered a room, his wine glass clinking against mine at just the right angle, a private joke whispered at the exact moment the photographer passed. People believed us. Too much. At one point, his grandmother clutched my hand and said, "You're the only one who ever made him soften." I didn't know how to answer that. Noah just looked away. We were seated together at every meal now. At breakfast, he would sneak extra croissants for me. At lunch, he'd refill my water without asking. Once, I caught him looking at me during a toast, his expression weirdly quiet, like I was a puzzle he'd just figured out. "You're good at this," I said that night, brushing imaginary crumbs from my dress. "Acting's in my blood," he replied. "Or maybe I just like annoying you in new and creative ways." But there was something underneath his voice. Something unsure. The next day, we joined a group tour to the nearby town of San Gimignano. The bus ride was long, hot, and full of screaming toddlers, so we stuck in earbuds and shared a playlist, one earbud each, like teenagers. Halfway through the ride, he leaned over. "Do you believe in soulmates?" he asked suddenly. I turned. "What?" "Just a question. It's a wedding. These things come up." I shrugged. "I think we meet people who challenge us. Who irritate us until we realize we needed them all along." He smiled at that. And I hated how my stomach flipped. In town, we got separated from the group. Our phones died. We wandered through alleys with cobblestone paths and ivy climbing up the buildings like nature's own decoration. It should have felt frustrating. But it didn't. We ended up at a tiny gelato shop. He got pistachio. I got hazelnut. He handed me his cone. Here. Try mine. No thanks. He narrowed his eyes. Try it. I rolled mine. Took a bite. Then blinked. Okay. That's actually good. Told you. We sat on the church steps as the sun started setting. His hand brushed mine. He didn't pull away. Neither did I. It wasn't loud. It wasn't fireworks. It was just stillness. And it felt dangerous. Later that night, back at the villa, I found a flower tucked into my doorframe. A single sprig of rosemary, the same kind we'd seen in the garden where we got lost. No note. But I knew who it was from. It was the kind of storm that made the whole villa exhale, a crackling sky, thunder rolling over the vineyards like a distant drumline. Rain lashed the windows with the determination of a plot twist. The rehearsal dinner was wrapping up when the lights flickered once, twice, then died completely. Gasps. Laughter. The sound of someone dropping a champagne flute. Backup generators down, someone muttered in the dark. Classic Italy. Guests lit candles, pulled out phone flashlights. A romantic catastrophe. I ducked into the kitchen to escape the noise and fetch extra napkins. He was already there. Noah, leaning against the counter, one candle burning beside him like he was posing for the cover of Brooding Groomsmen Monthly. I was hoping you'd show up, he said softly. I smirked, keeping my distance. Looking for me in a blackout? How poetic. He didn't fire back like usual. Just looked at me with that unreadable expression, all shadowed angles and something quiet simmering beneath. We stood there for a while, saying nothing. Outside, the storm softened to a hush. Inside, time slowed. He pulled a half-empty bottle of red from the fridge and gestured to the stools. Peace offering? I nodded. We poured. We sipped. Then came the silence. Not awkward. Not tense. Just weighty. I used to think you hated me, he said suddenly. I did, I replied. He laughed, shaking his head. Still do? I'm not sure. A beat passed. Then he spoke again, softer now. You were the only reason I came. It landed like a stone in my chest. I thought I'd get to annoy you. Make you roll your eyes. I didn't think I'd end up not wanting to stop. He looked up, eyes meeting mine. And for the first time, I saw past the teasing. The jokes. The walls we both built to keep from feeling too much. There was something behind his gaze, something vulnerable and terrifying and honest. So I kissed him. No plan. No nerves. Just instinct. His lips were warm. Slow. He held the back of my neck like he was afraid I'd vanish. It wasn't about lust or proving a point. It was soft. Careful. Like we were unwrapping something fragile. When we pulled apart, we didn't say anything. We just sat there, breathing in candlelight and the smell of rosemary from the garden drifting in through the open window. The rain had stopped. But inside, something had begun. I woke up with candle wax dried on my sleeve and a wine headache knocking politely at the edge of my skull. The kitchen was empty. The storm had passed. The power was back. And daylight made everything feel sharper, especially reality. I walked back to my room slowly, every step echoing in my chest. Had that actually happened? My lips still tingled. My chest still ached in a way that didn't feel like wine. I sat on the edge of the bed for what felt like hours. And then I did what cowards do best, I panicked. I found him in the garden, alone. The sun was warm, and he was scribbling in a notebook I didn't know he carried. He looked up, smiling, like the night before hadn't cracked open something irreversible. We should go back to pretending, I blurted. His smile faded, slow and clean, like a curtain being drawn shut. What? I couldn't look at him. I think we got caught up in the moment. The wine, the storm. It was nothing. Nothing, he repeated. You kissed me. I made a mistake. He closed the notebook. Stood. You know, he said, stepping closer, voice lower than I'd ever heard it. For someone who acts like they know everything, you're terrible at recognizing when something real happens. Then he walked past me. And didn't look back. The rest of the day blurred. He skipped the brunch. I went but barely spoke. Everyone noticed something was off, especially Leo, who kept giving me squinty-eyed glances like I'd just let down an entire sports team. Later, during the final dinner before the wedding, Noah sat across the table from me. He didn't make a single joke. Didn't refill my wine. Didn't meet my eyes. That night, the walls between room 3 and room 4 felt thicker than ever. No music. No laughter. Just silence. I wanted to knock on his door. I didn't. Instead, I stared at the ceiling, wondering how two people could be so loud together one night, and feel like strangers the next. The wedding came and went like a blur, white petals, camera shutters, soft music, and vows spoken beneath the Tuscan sun. I smiled through all of it. Clapped at the right times. Laughed when prompted. But it felt like I was watching a movie I didn't audition for. Noah stood at the edge of the crowd, sunglasses on, expression unreadable. When the bride tossed her bouquet, it soared right over my head. I didn't even reach for it. After the reception, guests danced under strings of glowing lights. Noah and I orbited each other like we were still tethered by something invisible, something both of us were too afraid to cut and too proud to acknowledge. I left early, told everyone I was tired. No one questioned it. Back in New York, the silence followed me. Days passed. Then a week. Then 2. He didn't text. I didn't call. I told myself I'd moved on. Buried it. That it had just been a blip, a romantic glitch in an otherwise predictable narrative. But every time I passed our mutual friends, I'd catch them glancing at me sideways, wondering if I'd bring him up. I didn't. My best friend tried to probe once. Something happened in Italy, didn't it? I shook my head. Not really. Lie. Another lie. I threw myself into work. Started dating someone new, a software engineer named Carter who liked indie movies and hated confrontation. He was nice. Gentle. Predictable. Safe. But when he kissed me, I didn't feel fireworks. I felt checked out. We dated for 6 weeks before I ended it. You're not really here, he said quietly, and I didn't deny it. Then one afternoon, I opened my mailbox and saw a single postcard. No name. No return address. Just a sentence, scrawled in blue ink. I'll be at Joe's Bagels on Tuesday. Bring your arguments. My heart stopped. Joe's was our spot, the one place in New York where we could argue about literally anything, and the bagels were good enough to survive it. I held the card like it might explode. I told myself not to go. I went anyway. The Tuesday air felt like autumn had finally arrived, crisp enough to sting, but not cold enough for a coat. I wore my favorite sweater, the one with holes in the cuffs I never mended. It made me feel like myself. Joe's Bagels looked exactly the same. Still smelled like toasted everything bagels and burnt espresso. Still had that one crooked table in the corner, the one we used to fight over, metaphorically and otherwise. He was already there. Same crooked grin. Same worn leather jacket. Same stupidly perfect timing. I froze in the doorway. He stood, held out a cup. Medium coffee, 2 sugars, splash of oat milk. You're welcome. I took it, silently. Sat down across from him like it hadn't been weeks. Like Tuscany was just a weird dream. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Then I said it, I don't hate you. Not even a little. His lips twitched. Good. Because I've got a whole list of arguments lined up and I plan to win at least one. I laughed. It came out shaky. I panicked, I admitted. That night, it felt too real. And I've spent most of my life pretending not to need anyone. He leaned forward, voice low. You didn't have to pretend with me. Silence again. But softer this time. I missed this, I said. This, he asked. You. The arguments. The noise. He smiled. I missed you too. He pulled something from his pocket. Not a gift. Just a rosemary sprig. Dried. Fragile. From the garden in Tuscany. I kept it, he said. Because I was stupid enough to think we were done. I blinked. Looked down at my hands. Then reached across the table. I don't want to be done. He grinned. Good, he said. Because I'm terrible at letting go. We didn't kiss. Not yet. But we walked out of that shop together, two stubborn people who'd finally run out of reasons to pretend. We didn't dive back in headfirst. We waited, cautiously, awkwardly, like two people who'd been burned and were still learning how to hold fire without flinching. We started small. Coffee on Tuesdays. Bagels on Thursdays. Occasional texts that turned into all-night calls. He never pushed. I never ran. We argued, of course. That was our rhythm. Who had the better taste in music, me, who folded laundry better, him unfairly so, and whether or not The Princess Bride was the perfect movie, we both agreed, begrudgingly. One Friday, we ended up at the Met, wandering through rooms filled with marble and shadow. We stood in front of a sculpture, two figures intertwined in a way that felt both intimate and unfinished. Noah tilted his head. What do you think? I shrugged. Looks like regret. He glanced at me. Or maybe timing. That night, he kissed me again. Not like in Tuscany. This time it wasn't careful. It was everything, hungry, sure, the kind of kiss that makes the past irrelevant and the future unavoidable. We fell into each other like a slow collapse. Afterward, tangled on his couch, he whispered into my hair, "You terrify me." Good, I whispered back. Means we're doing something right. Dating him was like learning how to breathe all over again. He was loud where I was guarded. Chaotic where I was careful. But somehow, we worked. He'd leave notes in my bag, dumb, messy scribbles that always made me laugh at the worst moments. I started writing too. Little lists of things I loved about him. Like how he always reached for my hand without thinking. Or how he couldn't fall asleep without music. Or how he still teased me just enough to keep things sharp, but never enough to draw blood. One night, I told him I loved him. We were lying on the floor, post-argument, post-makeout, post-everything. He looked at me like I'd handed him something fragile. I know, he said. Me too. And somehow, that was enough. Falling in love with Noah was loud. But telling the people in our lives was met with silence. It wasn't that anyone disapproved, not outright. But there were raised brows, polite nods, careful pauses. My best friend, the bride, blinked twice when I told her over wine. You and Noah? Yeah, I said. Me and Noah. She sipped. Then said, I guess I always knew something was there. You just fought so much I assumed you'd murder each other. We still might, I joked. But at least now it'll be romantic. Noah's cousin, her husband, was less graceful. He just muttered, damn, Leo owes me $50, and walked off. Most people adjusted. A few asked careful questions. How long has this been happening? Was anything going on before the wedding? Are you sure it's not just rebound energy? We ignored them. For once, we weren't performing. We weren't pretending. We were just us. But it wasn't always easy. There were moments where I'd flinch, expecting old fights to creep in. Moments where he'd joke too hard, and I'd shut down too fast. But we were learning. We argued with love now. We'd fight and then laugh in the middle of it. One time, we bickered over IKEA instructions for 2 hours, then ended up making out on the floor next to a half-built dresser. You drive me insane, I said, breathless. You're the most infuriating woman I've ever met, he replied. And then he kissed me like he was grateful I existed. Sometimes, love isn't fireworks or fate or soft violins. Sometimes, it's a stubborn boy and a sharp-tongued girl, choosing each other over and over, even when the world looks at them sideways. 1 year later, we went back to Italy. Not for a wedding this time, just us, backpacks and bad Italian, wandering through cobblestone streets like ghosts trying to retrace a memory. We stayed in a smaller villa, not as grand, but just as golden in the light. It smelled like rosemary and rain. On the second night, the power went out again. No candles this time. Just moonlight. He looked at me across the tiny kitchen, shook his head, and said, "Déjà vu?" I grinned. "Only if you kiss me again." So he did. It was slower now. Familiar. But just as real. Afterward, we sat on the counter, legs swinging, wine between us, silence easy. Do you ever think about that night? I asked. He turned to me. I think about all of it. How close we came to missing this. Would have saved us a lot of arguing. Would have saved me from you thinking you hated me. I laughed. I didn't hate you. I was just scared of how much I already liked you. He leaned in. Good. Because I plan on annoying you forever. Then, from his pocket, a small box. I froze. He didn't go down on one knee. Didn't make a speech. Just opened it and said, "You still up for pretending?" I cried. Obviously. But I also said yes. Because love, the messy, unexpected, impossible kind, had found us in a blackout. And this time, we weren't pretending. They say some people enter your life quietly, like a whisper. Ours arrived like thunder. But what followed was the softest kind of forever.